What's up guys, I'm Puneet from Programiz and welcome back to this series on JavaScript. In this video, we will learn about arrow functions and how we can use them in JavaScript. So let's get started. In 2015, a new version of JavaScript called ES6 was launched. It introduced a new way of creating a function called arrow functions. Now, arrow functions allow us to create functions in a much cleaner way compared to the regular functions we learned in the last video. Before we learned about arrow function, let's write a regular JavaScript function first. So I'll create a function called greet, and the greet function will not do much. It will just say good morning. Now let me call the function greet, and when I press run, as expected, it prints out good morning to the console. Now let's see how we can perform the same task using an arrow function. I'll start by commenting out these 3 lines. So I'm getting lazy and not using any shortcuts. And now let me write my arrow function. So arrow function starts with parenthesis followed by an arrow. The arrow is equals to followed by greater than sign, and I can write the body of the state function. So console log good morning, and now this is my arrow function. You must have noticed that the function keyword is not used to create an arrow function. Instead, the parenthesis and the arrow together signify that this is an arrow function. Now, we didn't give any name to our arrow function. That's why we need to assign it to a variable. So I'll create a variable named greet and assign this arrow function to the variable greet. Now greet is a function, so I can call it like a regular function, and when I press run, you can see that I got the same output as before. Now let's compare the arrow function with a regular function. You can see in the diagram that the arrow function makes our code shorter and cleaner. Also, like a regular function, an arrow function might have multiple statements inside it. In such cases, we can use curly braces. Let me show you. So on the same code, I will put curly braces, and let me put another line, console log how are you. Let me also put a full stop here, and because we have used multiple lines, I have enclosed everything in curly braces. Now I'll press run, and you can see that both of these lines were printed. If you're enjoying this video, please also check out Programiz Pro, where we provide tutorials along with quizzes and challenges which will help you practice and test your learning in real time. Also, the course includes projects to give you an awesome experience of how programming works in the real world. And for our YouTube subscribers, we are giving 50% off on the yearly plan. Sign up by scanning this QR code or use the link in the video description to claim your discount. We can also create an arrow function with parameters. Let me show you. I'll create an arrow function that takes 2 parameters, A and B, and adds them. So I'll remove this old code and just let me say const add numbers equals inside the parenthesis A comma B, and my muscle memory is acting up, so it says arrow, and I just need one line, so I'll just say console log. I don't need the curly braces. So A plus B. I'm being really lazy here. Now we can call this function by passing 2 argument values. So I will pass add numbers, and then for A I'll pass 5, and for B I'll pass something like 9. Let me press run, and you can see that 14, which is the sum of 5 and 9, was printed to the screen. Now there's a strange thing about arrow functions, that if it has only one parameter, we can omit the parentheses altogether. Let me show you. So I'll remove this old code, and I'll create a function called square that will square any number. So const square equals to A, and then I can say console.log A raised to the power of 2. If you didn't know, double star in JavaScript means raised to the power of. So let me call square on a number called 5, my favorite number, and when I press run, you can see that my program works. It gives me the square of 5, which is 25, and you can see that I have not added any parentheses here. Okay guys, we need your support to keep these kinds of content free for all users. YouTube really likes engagement on the video, so leave a comment below, press that like button, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get the engagement score high up so that more people can discover and enjoy these wonderful courses. In our early example of adding numbers, we have used the arrow function to add two numbers and print the result. Now, similar to our normal function, we can also return values from an arrow function and use it somewhere else in our program. Let's see an example. I'll use this previous code to add numbers. Now, instead of printing the result, I will return the result. So let me remove this console log result and say return result. Here, return result is a return statement that is used to return the value that's stored in the result variable from the function. Since the function is returning some value, this returned value needs to be stored somewhere. So during the function call, I will assign the return value to a variable, say output. So I can say const output equals add numbers 5, 9. Now let me print the sum. So I'll say console.log the sum is and my variable output. And now when I press run, you can see I get the sum is 14. That means I was able to successfully return a result from the function, store it in a variable, and print it in a user-friendly way. Since an arrow function is just another way to create a function, the return statement immediately terminates it as well. Let's verify this by adding a print statement after the return statement. So here I'll say console log hey I'm here, and when I press run, you can see that there's no trace of this hey I'm here, because as soon as we saw return, the function exits immediately. Now to practice what we've learned, here's a programming task for you. Can you create a program using an arrow function to check if the number entered by the user is a prime number or not? This function should compute the result and return it to the function call, and the result should be printed from outside the function. Take the input from the user, create a function called isPrime that accepts this number as input. Inside the function, create a for loop that goes from 2 to number -1. That means if the user enters 10, then the loop should go from 2 to 9. Now, if the number that the user entered is divisible by any of these numbers from 2 to 9, then the function should return false. Otherwise, it should return true. Now, display a message that tells the user whether the number they entered is prime or not outside of the function. You'll find the answer to this question in our GitHub repository. Also, if you want to revise these concepts, you can find all these programs in our GitHub repository as well. I'll put the link in the video description below. Now that we've reached the end of this video, it's time for Programiz quiz. What's the correct way to call this arrow function that you see on your screen? You can also see the options on the screen, and I hope you'll be able to answer the question in the comments. Happy programming!